Yeah, you probably know me by alcohol. And I don't like how people use my name. I hear people talk all day. Alcohol did this to me, alcohol did that to me. Meanwhile, I was minding my fucking business in Detroit. You drove into somebody because you had me in you? Don't you know what I do? Your friends didn't tell you about me. Oh, you got in a fight at a bar. I got news for you. Chances are you're probably going to get in a fight in that bar anyway. You're a dick. People take me because I guess I make them feel better, even though they know that I'm punishing their insides like a porn star. Be more responsible. They couldn't say it more clearly. Shit, they tried to stop even selling me, and you animals won't let me go. So fine, I'm here to stay. Good. Liver disease, kidneys bad, fine. Some of your eyes look like piss from an old homeless dude. And no disrespect to the homeless, you could really use me. It sucks out there. Stay strong. Andy. Well, Andy had always liked looking at erect nipples. One day, he was on the subway, and a woman came on. It had been raining outside, and her shirt was basically see-through. Her nipples as erect as statues. They were supple, and it was nice. Andy didn't realize he'd been looking at them for 4 stops. Finally, at some point, he looked up and caught her eyes and felt immense shame. And then he felt even worse when he realized that that was his grandmother. Here's something nobody's talking about. How terrible the Peacock app is. Now, sure, it is free, but that doesn't mean that because it's free it has to act like it. Other free apps don't act like this. This is just me talking while I attempt to get something to play. So, I'm opening the Peacock app. That's me hitting OK. Now let's wait and read a good book while the app talks to other people. It's almost like there are little people living inside your television when this app is on, and their communication is poor. One of them has to run all the way across the screen to talk to the other one who doesn't care to be bothered, and he's always got like a cigar that he won't put down. Okay, I'll get right on that, I guess. And then he pretends to type for a second instead of really typing, and then the other one's like, okay, now will you just start working so that the app will turn on and someone can watch something? It just opened. That whole story about the little men just opened, and I'm still staring at dots, not actual content yet, but they have given a top thing. I would call it a top order, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong too. Okay, so now life has taken place on the screen, and let's go to a television show. Now, when I start playing, that's when the true sadness begins, because yes, this has been a little frustrating. If I was, I don't know, had a gun to my head and somebody was like, quick, turn on the Ghislaine Maxwell story. You've got 30 seconds. I would be dead. But I'm now attempting to play this Ghislaine, whatever the lady who was helping Jeffrey Epstein fuck children. Her documentary is on Peacock. Got a 67%. So I guess either the love scenes are out of control or it's just a really good look into a sick woman. So I'm looking at a yellow ring. There we go. Now it's going. That's good, right? If you try to do anything within this playing app, you've just fucked yourself. So I'm going to let this 30 seconds of ad play out. They're advertising Tower Heist. I watched it briefly, like 20 minutes of it in jail once on USA or something. And it actually wasn't bad, and I am really opposed to watching Eddie Murphy movies in this day and age. I don't like to watch anything that took place after Bowfinger. It's just a slap in the face to me. But I own it, and have owned it for some time on Vudu. One day, I might actually watch it. Okay, so the video has begun to play. Fast forwarding and rewinding on this thing are like trying to pull candy out of Roseanne Barr's hand in the 90s. Wasn't gonna happen. You're probably gonna get bit for it. So now I'm trying to fast forward. 2x, 6x. You know what? This is actually much better than what they've got going on if you try to watch any WWE pay-per-view, any WWE program, fast forwarding and editing is like you're calling the app a name, and now it won't cooperate or take its clothes off. And now, the Stoners review for Werewolf Within. So, smoked something, decided I would try out this new comedy, Werewolves Within. The plot reads, when a killer terrorizes the snowed-in residents of a small town, it falls to the new forest ranger to find out who or what lurks among them in this hilarious horror whodunit. Well, it's got an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's got that black guy who's in the last few seasons of Veep. I do not know his name, but I think he's hilarious. And they've got that AT&T girl whose name is something foreign that I refuse to, and she was okay. I don't know, the plot was okay, and I liked the guessing game of like, okay, who's the werewolf, right? Did see it coming, and by like halfway through the movie, I was a champion, right? Smoke some more about it. And the only part that I would really complain about was towards the end, it just kind of went flaccid on me. Like once they had pulled back the rug and shown you that it matched the drapes, all the excitement was kind of gone. I don't know. Should you watch this? I'm gonna go ahead and say, since it's only $6.99 to rent, go ahead, give it one good watch, because it is wild funny and the suspense was all right. There were a few times there where, really had to clutch my pearls. But overall, I would give it like a 6 out of 10. Normally, I would rate that out of 5. Smoke something. Alright, so I've been back at work for a little over, I guess it's almost been 3 months now. Time flies. And I think part of the reason that it's been flying is because of the fact that I've been going to work like twice a week. So I think at first it was Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays, Thursdays, perfect for telework because you're still at home on Monday, which back when I was younger, I used to love calling out on Mondays. That was my shit. Because calling out on a Friday always felt wrong to me. Like, yes, I want a 3-day weekend, but calling out on a Friday feels very planned. Calling out on a Monday, even though now I know that they are both equally frowned upon, but calling out on a Monday to me felt impulsive, almost in a good way. And it was kind of like, you know what? This was a good weekend. Let's go ahead and keep it going one more day. As opposed to the greedy 3-day weekend taken ahead of time, Anyway, so staying in Monday, going Tuesday, staying in Wednesday, going Thursday. Now, it generally wouldn't even hit me that it was Thursday until I was already in my office on Thursday morning, and then I'm like, oh yeah, tomorrow's Friday, and here comes another weekend. What fun. And getting ready to change back to Wednesday, Thursday, which now that I've gotten so used to the Tuesday, Thursday swing, not excited about going back in 2 days in a row. But I said that to say, I am not excited about going in 5 days in a row anymore. I never thought the world would change enough that telework would be something that even I would get to do. And now, who the fuck wants to go back to that shit? Like, I get it. I think that living in New York City, we're under a different set of, not rules, but the city has to force everybody to come back, because if nobody's back in their offices, then none of the businesses are making money. Smaller towns don't have to have that almost parasitic relationship, because it'll be what it is. It's not crammed with millions and millions of people all trying to find their way through this incredibly expensive city. And so I understand why de Blasio would come out and say, you know what? As long as we're in accordance with CDC guidelines, let's return everything back to normal in September. And when he says everything back to normal, he's talking about even unvaccinated people having masks off. Excuse me. Unvaccinated people being maskless if all goes well. And why is that okay? I'm assuming, because I'm not one of the conspiracists, but I am assuming that'll be okay because either your employer is going to mandate getting vaccinated, which a lot of them can do, or you take your mask off because you're the only one who's really in danger. Although I have been seeing some things that the Delta variant is making anybody sick, which, let's not get into another lockdown. Like, the more I try to think back, Google is good about reminding me, like, hey, this is what you were doing a year ago, because part of me has almost blacked out some of that. Like, not every day. I mean, I remember we spent a year inside. I'll always remember that that's what 2020 was, because I was all excited. Oh yeah, it's going to be the 20s, except this time I'm going to be in it and somewhat young. And that is not how I thought we were going to kick off the roaring 20s. But that whole thing just kind of blended together. But honestly, if it hadn't been for all of the marathoning, we were just running through shows and movies. Even my son, who you can hear next to me, yes, I am fine. How are you?
Are you okay?
Yep, feeling all right.
Are you okay?
He's still getting a grasp on the English language, but he's got down repeating people. And occasionally he can even tell you what he wants. But telling you what he wants means telling you everything that he wants. Like, you don't just get one movie, you get every movie he can think of that he loves. So anyway, I think that it might be best to just mandate it. Look, if you don't want to get vaccinated because you are truly that paranoid, by all means, die for your cause. But everybody else, it's just like, no, nobody wants to get a fucking polio shot or the chicken pox or anything like that, but it is what it is. So if you want to be a part of a society, we've also agreed to no longer finger children. And if that bothers you, I know other things that might. You can't fucking marry an animal in the United States either. So sorry. Even though that time will come, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. The thought of just going back into work 5 days a week? Yuck. The only thing that it would be good for is that I can stop buying one-way passes on the subway, because I hate it. That $5.25 every day, it's $2.75 each way, but no me gusta. And selfishly, that's because in my last job, I had the pre-tax thing taken out, so I had a card. And I have a new card with a month on it that I didn't use. And I've just been waiting a year and a half to use it. I don't think it expires until 2022, I believe. Maybe 23, I need to check again. Either way, I have this free month sitting, but I'm not going to use it twice a week. If I'm going to give them that month, I need to be going in, and then once I go in, I'm going to start going out. I don't know where. I got to go to the park with it or something, because I got to put that thing to good use. So anyway, see, this is what happens when you listen to too many podcasts, because without even trying, I am like reaching into Jim Cornette's mind and speaking like him. But I will say, if you really want a good laugh and you watched wrestling in the 90s, go listen to Jim Cornette. He has 2 podcasts, and I just love them. Sometimes I'm learning. Sometimes it's just a wild story. Sometimes he's ranting about somebody. So funny. And glad I found it, because I'm going to need it for September when we're all back inside the offices. It's just, nobody wants to go back to it, but the employers They need people to go back, and I've had fun watching these things. I don't know what's going to happen to the food industry because people took that last year and really just decided what they're not going to do anymore. And a lot of people have decided that they aren't going to work a whole lot for a little, and they don't want to work the same schedules that they had decided were okay prior to 2020. And right on. In a stalemate, the person with money always wins. But I do think that it's time for everyone to change. I think the food industry needs to change, and if things are going to be more expensive, that'll just be what it is. Gas is expensive, and we complain, but we keep buying it. And the places just need to pay people more. Everywhere needs to pay people more, and everywhere should probably accept the fact that telework is something that people want to do, and if you don't want to do it, somebody out there is willing to be competitive.
So you mean to tell me that it's 2021 and people can't marry robots yet? Can they marry animals? Well, that's crazy. How long have the homosexuals been getting married? This is discrimination.
So I'm smoking with this dude. You know, we've known each other for several years. We both like to get down. And out of nowhere, he starts getting racist, talking about Asian people. A dude came around the corner where we were smoking and said something like, "It smells good," and he greeted him with so much aggression. And when that dude walked away, I was like, "Hey man, are you smoking this like I'm smoking it?" And he was like, "Yeah, why?" And I was like, "Because you're the most aggressive pothead that I've ever seen." And I put $4 in his hand because it's all the ones that I had. And I walked away with the roach. Yeah, man. That dude wasn't putting respect on marijuana's name any more than people put respect on mine, man. Alcohol and marijuana get a bad rap. I've been thinking a lot about basketball, given that the Milwaukee Bucks apparently won the NBA title last night. Congratulations to all three people that I know who are from Milwaukee. You escaped, and you know, that's something. It's odd how people always want to have pride where they're from, but they're never there when they have that pride. Looking at you, Puerto Ricans. But thinking about basketball made me reflect on this kid that I knew. His name is James. James was one of those kids, not in the most flamboyant way that you've ever seen, but he was one of those kids you could just look at and you knew he was gay. Before you knew what gay was, you knew James was it. And our mothers were really close friends. So he was presented to me as my cousin, and because I was a child, I believed that we were related. So I introduced him to people as my cousin. And I know that that's something that a lot of black people do. I never got it. I don't like it. If you're not my relative, why are we calling you my relative? We can just call you a really good friend. So I spent a lot of time with James. We had sleepovers all the time. Our mothers were friends, so they hung out all the time. Which would have been cool if James were cool. But James was a bitch pretty much from birth. And I was a jerk. A jerk like I wouldn't let him have my food because he was chubby and because I didn't want to share. Like, it was kind of which came first, the chicken or the egg, because I was already selfish. I never liked sharing. And I'll use my Neapolitan ice cream as an example. I love Neapolitan ice cream. I will not have something else. I don't like anything else. I've tried them. Yuck. But James would always want to have some of my ice cream. Now, I don't like that. Like, even looking back, I don't like the way that sounds coming out of my mouth. Like, why do you want some of my ice cream? Don't you have your own? Can't you wait till you get back home for some? But I was a jerk because I wouldn't give it, and I would just tell him flat out, and like a bitch, he would go to my mother because I would tell him straight up, no, you can't have some, you're fat. I don't think ice cream needs to be in you right now. Now, if you want to wrestle or something, you can sweat off and maybe earn you a scoop. But he would only hear that for so long before he eventually went crying, which, if his father had been president, his life should have broken his heart. He would go crying to my mother because he couldn't have ice cream. And we're talking like 9-10 years old. And of course, because my mother was a little chubby back in the day, still a saint, she would give the fat kid some ice cream. So, what does this have to do with basketball? Well, one day, James is playing with myself and the local kids. Now, James has hung out with me enough that even though he's not from my neighborhood, kids kind of know him, and they know he's a bitch and gay, even though nobody knows what gay is. So, we're at the basketball court, and you know, when you're a little kid in like elementary school, and I want you to think pretty black neighborhood, the basketball court was always busy, and it was right down the street from my neighborhood, but the big kids would play all day, and maybe one of them would decide to be cool and ask one of the little kids if they wanted to play, but the little kids would just sit there and watch them play for hours, hoping for the chance to get up there. And really, the little kids didn't want to play with the big kids. They just wanted the big kids to finish and get the fuck off the court. Like, who needs to play for 3 hours? You're never going to make it to the NBA. So, we waited for what felt like hours that day. And I have always had a mouth. It certainly wrote a lot of checks that my ass couldn't cash back in its time. Although, at this particular time in my life, I love to fight. I would always fight, and I got a real big thing out of kicking people in the face. These kids are easily 3 times our size. Like, if we are in the 4th grade, they look like they're thinking about what college to apply to. Even though I'm pretty sure that they weren't. So, I start with some kind of comments, and you know, for a while, especially because you're little kids, for a while, people just ignore, and then eventually you can tell that it's getting on your nerves. The best analogy that I can give, actually no, okay, so this is a good example of the kind of mouth that I had as a kid. In high school, because it wasn't until right after high school that I somewhat matured, there was this fat kid in ROTC with me. And yeah, another fat kid. I know, I like to pick on fat kids when I was a kid. If you were to ask me about it as an adult, I don't really make fun of fat people that much, but I do like to pick on them. I like to pick on everybody, but you'll see what I'm talking about. So the fat kid and we never really got along. He thought I was obnoxious, which I was. I talked all the time. And I thought he was an ugly fat kid who had no personality, and he was. So we're talking one day, and he's basically just like, shut up, you annoying little black kid. And I was like, not only will I not shut up, I am going to talk at you for the rest of the day until I break you. And I told him that. I was like, I'm not going to leave you alone until you cry. So he's trying to ignore me. I want to say I went at him for a good 30 minutes straight. I don't remember why the teacher wasn't stopping me. I don't remember if he was even in the room. Senior chief something, because I think he must have left the room. So I just berate this kid for like 35 minutes. And I finally get him. And once he starts to cry, everybody in the classroom starts laughing. That's when the teacher pulled me and him outside. I didn't get in trouble for it. So that's the kind of mouth that I had. Like, don't test it. You might as well just swing on me. You don't want to let me keep talking. So I'm running my mouth at the court, and my friend is with me, and he's also running his mouth. So the two of us combined eventually got these kids at the court like, fuck that, now I'm gonna stomp you. So the chase is on. Because they're so big, we aren't even gonna give that a try. Like, they would have killed us. So we take off into the woods. I think we had a basketball. Like, I think this dude Richard that we were with had a basketball, which sucks trying to run from people with it. And we're so little that the basketball is like a really big object to be running with. It's like running with a tuba. So we're running through the woods, we're hiding behind trees, and we're in the creek. And these kids are like serial killers. They are not only following us in the woods, but they're talking shit, and they're like, hey, we're gonna fucking kill you. And then we start running some more. I was about to get to the end, but then I remembered we were in a totally different location. They chased us through the woods for at least an hour. It was so much so that all of us began thinking like, holy shit, we are not gonna get out of this without those kids fucking kicking our asses. And so we're like sitting in a bush. Try to imagine the Korean War. So we are in the jungle, and you can see the sky through the trees. The kids are yelling out some serious type threats. Yes, that is my son screaming in the background for no reason. And finally James, the bitch, who everyone knew was gay before they knew what gay was, goes, all right guys, I can't do this anymore. And we're like, what the fuck are you talking about? He stands up with his arms raised as though he's turning himself into the police. And then he's like, hey guys, I don't want to play anymore. And we're just like, James, get the fuck down. Those kids are gonna kill you. And long story short, because I do have to go tend to this crying kid, they beat the shit out of James in the woods that day, and we were just like, I don't know what made him think that he could do that. Yeah, so that's where my mind goes when I think about basketball. And every once in a while, my mom will like talk to me and check in, and she's like, do you remember James? And I'm like, how the fuck could I forget? He was gay before I knew what gay was. And she's like, yeah, apparently he's gay, living down in I don't know where. And I was like, yeah, of course he is. But, you know, who didn't see that coming?